Okay, so good afternoon, guys. So this afternoon we will be doing your laboratory exercise for sphygmomanometry and ECG. So this afternoon, our session will be of two parts. So first, we'll have your sphygmomanometry, and then later on, your activity for your ECG. Now, this video orientation is designed so that when you go to face-to-face or when you go to your face-to-face sessions a few weeks from now or a few days from now, you'll have a good idea or understanding what you will be doing during your laboratory session. No? So bibigyan namin kayo ng orientation ngayong hapon on what you will be doing for your face-to-face laboratory session. Now, at this point, I hope you have your equilateral triangles with you. No? That's big enough for you to work on. Your ruler, your protractor, and your pens. You know, to use your pencils. So it is important that you have an equilateral triangle. So all sides should be of equal length and tawag nito, yung angles pare-pareho lang. No? Kaya siya equilateral triangle. Now, you need also to download yung ECG tracing, no? Which is posted in Moodle. You need not print it, no? All you need to do is download it and have it with you, no? For this session so that you can easily magnify and count the small boxes and all that when we're doing the ECG, no? Okay. So I guess we'll start. So first, let's talk about sphygmomanometry. No? So this is a procedure wherein we measure the blood pressure. So this is typically done in the hospital or in the clinics or even in our homes. No? So you could do this anywhere. No? So this is how we measure blood pressure. Okay. So what is blood pressure first? So this is the force exerted of the flowing blood onto the arterial walls. Now, typically, your sphygmomanometer will detect your systolic and your diastolic pressure. So your systolic pressure is due to the ventricular contraction. No? So it can go as high as 120 millimeters mercury. So this means that, for example, when you get your blood pressure, no, your systolic pressure with a reading of 120 millimeters mercury, so this means that the ventricle has generated 120 millimeters mercury pressure in order to push the blood out, no, into your outflow tract, into your aorta, no. The next one is your diastolic pressure. Now, your diastolic pressure is the other number. So, for example, if your reading is 120 over 80, 80 is your diastolic pressure. Now, your diastolic pressure is typically due to the recoil of the aorta. So this means that when at the end of systole, no, so the ventricles will now relax, the aortic valve closes, then your aorta will now recoil. This recoil, no, will generate pressure, which is now recorded as your diastolic pressure. So for example, if your blood pressure is 120 over 80, then 80 millimeters mercury is the pressure generated by the aorta, no, that will push the blood forward, no, during diastole. So take note that diastole and aortic recoil occurs at the same time. So it's a common misconception that students will say na diastolic pressure is due to ventricular relaxation or diastole. No, it's actually due to your aortic recoil. No? So that's one common misconception. Kaya at this point, you should understand that your diastolic pressure is due to your aortic recoil. No? Okay. Now this is typically measured by your sphygmomanometer. So this is a typical BP cuff or your sphygmomanometer. So take note of the parts. No? Now, when you get your blood pressure, no, for example, you have a patient, no, comes in your clinic and then you will get the blood pressure. So first, make sure that the patient, no, is seated comfortably, no? Yung arm which you will use to measure, preferably or more commonly we use the left arm, but you can use the right arm as well, no? It should rest on a table like so, no? Outstretched ng konti. Back, naka-rest, no? If possible. Both feet on the floor. So the patient is resting comfortably, no? So once your patient comes in, no? Make sure na adequately rested siya so you do not get the BP immediately, no? Sometimes kasi patients would come to your clinic, no? Probably it's too hot outside, or no, I don't know, the patient went up like 10 floors, so medyo mataas yung heart rate nila. So heart rate is increased. So normally we allow the patient to rest for a while, probably 5 to 15 minutes. No? Have the patient seated comfortably like so, no? And that's when you get your blood pressure. Now, before getting your blood pressure, make sure you use the right BP cuff. Now, your BP cuff will typically cover 2/3 of the length of your arm, no? So it should not be too big or it should not be too small, no? So it should cover around 2/3 of your arm, no? And when you place your cuff, you place it snugly. So not too tight, not too loose, no? Just right, no? So that you could, easily insert your finger underneath the cuff. And when you place the cuff, around 2 to 3 finger breadths above the antecubital fossa. Like, yeah, like so, no? Mga 2 or 3 finger breadths. Mga 2 to 3 inches above the antecubital fossa. Now, when you place your cuff, make sure that the cuff is at the level of the heart, no? So it should not be elevated or it should not be dangling, no? So dapat yung arm resting comfortably on the table like this one, and then yung cuff, it's at the level of the heart, no? Okay, then you're ready to get your blood pressure. So first you have your palpatory pressure. What you need to do is you need to inflate the cuff, no? You need to inflate the cuff until your radial pulse disappears. So you need to palpate your radial pulse, and then the moment the pulse disappears, no, gradually decrease, no, the pressure of the cuff. No? At some point, the radial pulse will begin to reappear. So lalabas siya ulit. No? So that's when you read your palpatory pressure. So for example, you inflate the cuff, the radial pulse disappears, and then you gradually deflate. Let's say as you gradually deflate, no, the pulse reappears, let's say at 130 millimeters mercury. Doon mo naramdaman yung radial pulse, 130 millimeters mercury. So that will be your palpatory pressure. So what does that mean? So this means that the heart generates 130 millimeters mercury pressure, and this is sufficient to counteract the pressure exerted by the cuff. So blood now will be allowed to flow through. Nasusundan. Okay, so once blood is allowed to flow through, then you'll be able to feel your radial pulse. So that's the physiology behind your palpatory pressure. Now let's go to your systolic and your diastolic pressure. So for this one, you'll have to use your stethoscope, no? You'll have a more extensive discussion on how to do your BP, I think in IPD, no? But we'll focus more on the physiologic mechanism behind getting your blood pressure. So if you want to determine your systolic and your diastolic pressure, of course, you will use the diaphragm of your stethoscope. So you will place the diaphragm at the antecubital fossa and then inflate the cuff, no? Make sure that you will not be able to hear your Korotkov sound, no, when you place your diaphragm. So inflate your cuff, no, and make sure that you should not be hearing any tawag ito, a Korotkov sound, no. So typically you inflate that at around 160 or 180 millimeters mercury. So depending on the blood pressure of your patient, sometimes up to 200 if the patient is hypertensive. Anyway, so inflate your cuff, no? And then gradually decrease the pressure. Gradually decrease the pressure. So the moment you hear the Korotkov sound, that is your systolic pressure. No? That is your systolic pressure. And then allow the pressure to gradually go down. The moment the Korotkov sound disappears, this is now your diastolic pressure. No? Ulitin ko. Inflate your cuff, no? Make sure you don't hear any Korotkov sound. Gradually decrease, no? The moment or the reading wherein you first hear the Korotkov sound is your systolic pressure, no? And as you gradually decrease, the moment the sound disappears, that's your diastolic pressure. Okay. So let's say your blood pressure reading is 140 over 100 millimeters mercury, no? Hypothetically. So what does that mean? Okay, you inflate the cuff, no? So the cuff now occludes your blood vessel. So no blood is flowing through. Now you gradually decrease, no? You gradually decrease. The moment it hits 140 millimeters mercury and you hear the Korotkov sound, this means that the heart, no, is pumping or is generating 140 millimeters mercury pressure, no, strong enough for blood to flow through, no. So 140 is strong enough to counteract the pressure exerted by the cuff, no. And as blood is flowing through, so there is some turbulence happening, no. There is some turbulence happening. So this is now your Korotkov sound, no? So kapag nagkaroon kasi ng turbulence in blood flow, oh by the way, normally blood flow is laminar. And if blood flow is laminar, it should be silent, no? But if blood flow becomes turbulent, then you can hear Korotkov sound, no? Or sometimes in the heart it's called murmur, in the blood vessels it's called bruit, no? But you'll have your IPD sessions for that. But for now, in getting your cuff, so that's your Korotkov sound. So as you gradually decrease the pressure and you hit 140, so that's your systolic pressure. So this means the ventricle is generating 140 millimeters mercury pressure, and this is sufficient to counteract the pressure exerted by the cuff. Blood is now allowed to flow through. That's your that's your systolic pressure, no? So as your pressure gradually decreases, the moment wherein it disappears, so this is said to be your diastolic pressure. So let's say this is 100 millimeters mercury. So this means that the aortic recoil, no, the aortic recoil is generating 100 millimeters mercury pressure. And this is again sufficient to counteract the pressure of the cuff. Any questions so far?
None, Doc.
Okay. At that point, blood flow now becomes laminar. That's why the sound disappears. So your systolic pressure and your diastolic pressure, both of them are sufficient to counteract the pressure exerted by the cuff. So blood flow now becomes laminar. No? Okay. So that's how we typically get your blood pressure. Now, you could use either arm, no? Or in some cases, you could actually use the legs. But we leave it to the IPD people to teach you how to get the blood pressure sa legs, no? But for now, let's go with the usual arm muna. Okay. So these are the things that you should know as physicians. So this is the formula for blood pressure. So again, it's a common misconception that when we ask, oh, what's the formula for blood pressure? Doc, it's systolic over diastolic. No, that's not the formula for blood pressure. No, that's your BP reading. The formula for blood pressure is your cardiac output times total peripheral resistance. And if you want to expand the formula, cardiac output is stroke volume times heart rate times total peripheral resistance. Now, if you look at your formula, these are the factors that will affect blood pressure. Ulitin ko. These are the factors that affect blood pressure. So any alteration in one or more of these can actually change blood pressure. No? Like for example, when you have too much water reabsorption due to RAAS activation, no? So aldosterone keeps on reabsorbing water, no? So that increases your blood volume, that will increase your venous return. And I hope at this point, increasing your venous return means you also have an increase in cardiac output or in stroke volume. No? So dapat at this point, alam nyo na yon. The amount of blood coming in should be equal to the amount of blood going out. No? Another example, when you activate your sympathetics, diba? Activating your sympathetics increases your inotropic effect. So that increases force of contraction, that increases stroke volume. That also increases heart rate. Diba? Tumataas yung heart rate natin during sympathetic activity. Blood vessels will also constrict. Or review your autonomics. So if you look at the formula, any alterations in any of these parameters can actually change blood pressure. And why is this formula so important? Because when you become doctors, no, when you go to second year and you learn about antihypertensive drugs, and when you become doctors and you're practicing already, no, our medications will actually revolve in one or more of these parameters, no, like your diuretics, your beta blockers, your calcium channel blockers, your ACE inhibitors, etc. So we have a lot of antihypertensive medications. And in a nutshell, these medications will actually act on one or more of these parameters. No? So this is the reason why antihypertensive management is tailor-made for a specific patient. No? So this is not like, hey, this is what my doctor prescribed to me. No? You might want to try it out. So hindi ganon. No? That's a common Filipino practice eh. Kung ano yung gamot ng kapitbahay mo, iniinom mo na. No? So we don't do it that way. No? As much as possible, you need to consult your doctor or you need to consult your cardiologist first, because our antihypertensive management is tailor-made for a specific patient. No? One management modality for one may not be effective for another. So you keep that in mind. No? Kaya importanteng nagpapa-check up kayo. Okay, so that's your blood pressure. No? Next is your BP reading. So again, this is your systolic over your diastolic pressure. This is not a formula. This is not a formula. Now, your systolic and your diastolic pressures can actually determine a lot of other parameters. So first, you have your pulse pressure. Now, your pulse pressure is the difference between your systolic and your diastolic pressure. No? So you just subtract. For example, if your blood pressure is 120 over 80, then 120 minus 80, that's your pulse pressure. So that's around 40 millimeters mercury. Malinaw? Okay. Now, in clinical practice, pulse pressure is important. So it's not enough now we just get blood pressure, you know, as if we're robots. Na, okay, kuha ng blood pressure, no, without actually checking all other parameters. So for example, you need to determine your pulse pressure, you get the difference. There are certain conditions wherein your pulse pressure becomes narrow, and there are certain conditions wherein your pulse pressure becomes wide, no? And you need to correlate. For example, again, this is the normal range for your pulse pressure. If it falls below 40 millimeters mercury, then you have a narrow pulse pressure. That is not normal. So you need to correlate. So for example, in the hospital, you have a patient who has dengue, no? Dengue hemorrhagic fever, no? sometimes these patients could go into hypotensive shock. Now, one of the portents for hypotension or dengue shock syndrome is when you're having a narrow pulse pressure, no? So kapag less than 40, then you might want to alert your attending physician. No, you might want to alert your attending physician. So for example, you have a patient who has dengue. Let's say the BP reading is 100 over 80. 100 over 80 millimeters mercury. So don't be too complacent. No, you might want to, monitor this patient more closely, because if you don't, no, you might miss kapag nag-dengue shock na siya. No? So these are signs that, itong pasyenteng to might go into shock a few moments from now. Okay. For wide pulse pressure, classic example would be hyperthyroidism, no? Yung mga hypermetabolic states. When you have hypermetabolic states kasi, like for example, hyperthyroidism, pheochromocytoma, malignant hypertension, things like that, your systolic pressure drastically increases. No, drastically increases. So you might want to watch out for that as well. So this is when your pulse pressure exceeds 60 millimeters mercury. So for example, let's say your blood pressure becomes 160 over 80. No, you might want to check on your patient. You might want to investigate further. No, so you don't just leave it at that. No, so importante rin na tinitignan natin itong mga parameters na ito. So it's important for us that we look into these parameters. And if you have any deviations from the normal, then you might want to alert your attending physician. No? Any questions so far?
None po, Doc.
None, Doc.
Okay. The next parameter that you can determine is your mean arterial pressure. So this is the average pressure, no, exerted on the arterial wall throughout a cardiac cycle. No? So this is the average between your systolic and your diastolic pressure. And mind you, this is not your simple average formula. So hindi ito systolic plus diastolic divided by 2. Doesn't work that way. So this is the formula for your mean arterial pressure. Now there are several derivations of this formula, but they're the same. No, they're essentially the same. No, what I typically use is this one: diastolic pressure plus 1/3 of your pulse pressure, because this is a little bit easier to memorize. No, at least for me. So it's up to you guys. But at any rate, if you Google the formula for your mean arterial pressure, there are a lot of derivations for this formula. But if you manipulate the variables, you essentially end up with the same formula anyway. No? So I use diastolic pressure plus 1/3 pulse pressure. No? It's the same as this one. So again, this is your average pressure, no, exerted on the arterial wall or on the vessel wall throughout a cardiac cycle. Okay. Now, this is the classification for your blood pressure. Now, this is from the American Heart Association. No, this is the classification being used by the American Heart Association. Now, if you look at other health organizations, they could have a different classification. But in clinical practice, this is the one being used more commonly. No, okay. So take note of a few things. So before classifying your patient as having hypertension, stage 1, stage 2, or whatnot, no? Again, make sure the patient is properly rested, no? Before taking the blood pressure, you actually get the blood pressure properly, no? So hindi pwedeng yung kung ano-ano yung ginagawa ninyo while getting your blood pressure. So it's important for you to properly perform, no? Getting your blood pressure or your sphygmomanometry. Now, we typically take 2 readings on separate occasions. Now, ideally, no, we get the pressure or the blood pressure typically in the morning, no? So this is said to be more accurate compared to yung mid-afternoon or late in the evening. Typically, yung mga morning blood pressure readings natin, this is more reflective of our resting blood pressure. No? Okay, take 2 readings on separate occasions. So that's when you classify if your patient actually has hypertension. Now, so this is your tawag dito? Readings, no? So for hypotension, both criteria must be fulfilled. So systolic is less than 90 and diastolic pressure should be less than 60. So both criteria must be fulfilled. A normal blood pressure is less than 120 systolic and less than 80 millimeters mercury diastolic pressure. Again, both criteria must be fulfilled. No? For an elevated blood pressure, this is 120 to 129 millimeters mercury systolic and 80 millimeters mercury diastolic, or less than 80, less than 80 millimeters mercury diastolic. Again, both criteria must be fulfilled. Now let's go to hypertension. Hypertension stage 1. Systolic is 130 to 139 or diastolic 80 to 89 millimeters mercury. So either, no? Either. For stage 2, it's greater than 140 systolic or greater than 90 diastolic. Again, condition is either. And for hypertensive crisis, so this is when you immediately bring the patient to the hospital already, regardless of meron siyang nararamdaman, no? Symptomatic siya or wala, or asymptomatic, no? So regardless of any symptoms or lack thereof, you need to bring this patient to the hospital already. So this is your hypertensive crisis. Blood pressure or systolic pressure is greater than 180 or diastolic pressure is greater than 120 millimeters mercury. So either condition may be present. Now, in classifying your blood pressure, you get the higher reading. Always get the higher reading. Any questions so far?
None, Doc.
None, Doc.
Okay. So having said that, let's do a little exercise. No? O sige, mag-unmute kayo guys ha. So if you get a blood pressure of 130 over 95, what is that?
Stage 1.
Stage 1, Doc.
Stage 1. What about 125 over 70?
Elevated.
Elevated.
Elevated. Okay. What about 90 over 70?
Normal.
Normal po.
Normal po.
Normal. So for you guys, normal ang 90 over 70. Okay, let's see. So 130 over 95 is actually stage 2. No? So 130 is this one. 95 is this one. So again, get the higher reading. So that's stage 2 hypertension. 125 over 70. So 125 is here. No? 70 is less than 80. So this is elevated. Again, both criteria are fulfilled. So that's elevated blood pressure. 90 over 70 is not normal. Ulitin ko, it's not normal. So this is the one that I was telling you about. Na it's not enough, no, for us to just keep on getting blood pressure without actually checking other parameters. So 90 over 70 is actually abnormal. This is a narrow pulse pressure, no, wherein you only have a 20 millimeter mercury difference. So that's not normal. So this is a narrow pulse pressure, no? Because sometimes if you're in the hospital, no, you're doing your rounds, you get your blood pressure 90 over 70, and you think, oh, that's normal. O di wala na, dead man. No? You might you might not refer this to your senior or to your consultant or to the attending physician, then it becomes problematic. No? Okay, what's the normal range po for narrow pulse pressure? Oh, guys, sagot. What's the normal range for a narrow pulse pressure?
40 to 60.
That's the, okay. So any value less than 40 is a narrow pulse pressure. No, any value less than 40 is a narrow pulse pressure. Any value greater than 60 is a wide pulse pressure. Okay, sige. Okay. Oh, unmute ulit, konting exercise. So here we have 3 pictures, no? How many mistakes can you identify? Ulitin natin. How many mistakes can you identify? So let's look at picture number 1. Sige, go.
May kape po siya, Doc.
Okay, nagkakape yung pasyente. So sometimes your caffeine can increase heart rate, di ba? Especially if it's black. Oh, what else?
Wala po
Marlboro
pati
Lights
yung kamay niya, Dok.
Arm is
Yeah.
not rested.
Okay, the arm is not properly resting. No? What else?
May Marlboro Lights po.
Okay, sige. What
The patient is talking po while taking the blood pressure.
Okay, correct. So how can you possibly hear the Korotko if you're talking to the patient? Oh, what else?
Di po nakatingin sa sphygmo yung doktor.
Okay, sige. Ano pa?
Doc, yung clothes po niya, hindi po nakataas yung
Okay,
sleeve.
correct. No? So you need to roll up the sleeve because any clothing can obscure the Korotkov sound. Oh, what else?
Dok, yung paghawak po ng doktor dun sa tawag dun sa bell
Sa
of
stet.
diaphragm, sa stet.
Well,
Sa diaphragm, dun sa ng stet po.
okay. Ano pa?
The arm is not flat, laying on a flat surface po.
Okay. So dapat seated comfortably. Hindi ka dapat naka-cross legs. No? So seated comfortably, arm on the table, and ano pa? Oh, ano to?
Not at the level of the heart po, Dok.
Okay, so
Yung-
kung mapapansin nyo, naka-outstretched, no? The arm is outstretched, no? So dapat at the level of the heart, no? What about picture number 2?
Yung pwesto po ng diaphragm, Doc.
Okay, no? So the diaphragm or your stethoscope should be at the antecubital fossa. What about picture 3?
Nakatingin po siya sa camera, Doc.
He's not
Okay.
looking at the patient.
Nakanolog po.
Oh, selfie
Hindi
pa
po
daw.
Do yung damit po,
Damit.
Dok.
Okay, so isa-isahin natin. So syempre, the one taking the blood pressure should be looking at your gauge. So how can you possibly get the reading if you're looking elsewhere? 'Di ba? Ano pa? Yung
Damit po. Hindi po
Okay.
naka-roll up yung
okay,
sleeve.
so ideally dapat naka-roll up yung sleeves, no? So these are the things that you should take note. I'm sure the IPD people will have a more extensive discussion on how to get your blood pressure, no? Any questions so far?
None, Doc.
None, Dok.
Okay. Now let's go to your ECG, no? Okay. So your ECG or your electrocardiogram, no, or EKG, kung British ka, detects electric activity of the heart. So this is a typical ECG machine. It's a little bit antiquated, but it's good enough. No, this is the one we have in the lab. We have another one. It's a little bit more high tech, but I prefer to use this one. This is a better teaching tool compared to the other one. No, you'll know why when you go to your F2F or face-to-face sessions with us. Okay, so this is your typical ECG machine. So it detects electric activity of the heart. Now it could serve as a screening or a diagnostic tool for certain pathologies or cardiac pathologies. Now typically it is the gold standard in detecting arrhythmias. So any problem in the electrical conductive or conduction system within the heart, no, the ECG is the tool for it, no. So this is your gold standard in diagnosing cardiac arrhythmias. Now, it can serve as a screening tool for other pathologies. Like, for example, when you have myocardial infarct, no, this could serve as a screening tool. When you have certain myopathies, no, it could serve as a screening tool. Or when you have certain electrolyte imbalances, like changes in your calcium levels, changes in your potassium levels. So this could serve as a screening tool, no? So that's your ECG machine. Okay. Now, before we go into the actual tracing, so importante, you should know that be familiar with the parts. So here are your electrodes. These are your electrodes. So these are the electrodes that will be placed on the extremities, and they will now detect, no, your limb leads. These are the electrodes placed on the chest, and they will now detect your precordial leads. And these are your clamps, no? So when placing your electrodes, mind you, these are electrodes. These are not leads. These are electrodes. The one that you place on the extremities, these are the electrodes, no? When placing your clamps or your suction cups, it is important that the metal plates should touch the skin, no? So that the machine is able to detect the electric activity, no? Okay, so these are your electrodes for the extremities. Now, it is important for you to place them properly, no? So if you look at the machine, or many ECG machines will either have color coding or labels. But currently, what is more important would be the label, no? So for example, the red one is placed in the right arm here. The yellow one is in the left arm, no? The green one is in the left leg, and the black one is placed on the right leg, which serves as the ground, no? Your ground will filter out all other electric activities in the body, because take note that our body, no, other than the heart, produces, no, electric current. So you have your neurons, you have your muscles, no? So all of these electric activities will be filtered out by your ground, so that the machine can, more or less detect the electric activity of the heart. Now, again, these are your electrodes, and they should be placed properly, no? So hindi dapat sila, you just don't place electrodes, no, wherever you want. Importante, tama yung kanilang placement, no? So it is important that you properly place them, because only then, no, you will get the proper placement of your leads. So when you say leads, this is actually one pole to the other in the case of your bipolar limb leads. So for example, I think you've discussed this kaninang umaga with Dr. Barbon. This is lead 1. So lead 1 is from your right arm to your left arm, no? So your lead 1 has the negative pole on the right arm and the positive pole on the left arm. Lead 2, the negative pole is in the left arm, the positive pole is in the left leg. So that's lead 2. And lead 3, the negative pole is in the left arm, the positive pole is in the left leg. Again, that's the proper placement of your electrodes, no? So with that, you have the proper placement of your poles and the proper placement of your leads, no? So ang clue ko dyan, no, how you can easily remember, the right arm is negative, negative, the left foot is positive, positive. So negative, negative, positive, positive. And then you just fill in the rest, this one, no? Okay. So this is your augmented limb leads naman, no? So you have your AVR, AVL, and AVF. So for this one, the machine will now assign the positive pole. So in the case of AVR, the positive pole is assigned to the right arm, no? That's AVR. AVL, the positive pole is assigned to the left arm, and AVF, the positive pole is assigned to the left leg. Again, this is the reason why placement of your electrodes is important, because the machine is assigning the poles. No, if you misplace one electrode, then your recording will be erroneous. No, so you take note of your the proper placement of your electrodes. Okay, so this is your precordial leads, V1 to V6. Some ECG machines can go up to V8, no? But a standard ECG machine is V1 to V6. No? Sometimes it's color-coded, but a lot of times it should be labeled. So V1 to V6. And this is the placement of your precordial leads. No? I think nabanggit naman ni Dr. Barbon on how to properly place your precordial leads on the chest. So in your manual, these are their sites. So again, it is important for you to properly place your V1 to V6. No? So you need to locate your landmarks. You need to locate your landmark. So this is not just simply placing your V1 anywhere you like. No? Because the machine will assign this as your positive pole. No, dito ilalagay ng machine yung positive pole. If you place it elsewhere, then that's where your positive pole is. No? Then your ECG tracing may become erroneous. Now, during your face-to-face session, no, you will be taught on how to properly place these electrodes. No? Again, take note of your landmarks. Your reliable landmarks will be your intercostal space. No? Your intercostal spaces, not your nipple line. No? Some nursing graduates kasi they use the nipple as their landmark for the 5th intercostal space, which is that's not entirely accurate, because if your patient is a senior citizen, then your nipple line is, you know, below na the rib cage. So mas mababa na sa rib cage yung nipple line niya, diba? Or kapag nag-breast augmentation yung patient, then your nipple line is elsewhere. So ganon. So the nipple line is not a reliable landmark. More reliable landmark would be your intercostal space. So during your face-to-face sessions, you will be taught on how to properly place your electrodes. No? Okay. So let's say you will be doing your ECG. No? So you guys, when you become clerks or when you're in your 4th year, no, it's typically the junior interns. No, you guys will be doing the ECG. No, okay. So these are the things that you need to take note. So number 1 is the proper placement of your electrodes. Again, we cannot emphasize enough the importance of placing your electrodes properly. No, importante yan. Importante yan. Next, secure attachments. Make sure your metal clamps are in contact with the skin. No, sometimes you could use alcohol to on the metal plates, no, or in the suction cups. So your alcohol will help conduct the electric activity, no, for the machine to, you know, easily read it. During the recording, do not touch the patient. No, do not touch the patient, because our body produces electric currents. No, sometimes it could be read by the machine. Okay. Once you have your tracing, no, you need to label the tracing immediately, right after you have your tracing. Take note of the name, age, gender, date, and time. Time is important. No, time is important because your ECG tracing right now may be a different ECG tracing a few hours or a few minutes from now. So pwedeng iba na yon. So importante yung time, no? And then of course, if you're using a, you know, a little antiquated na ECG machine, you need to label your ECG tracings, no? Leads 1, 2, 3, AVR, AVL, AVF, V1 to V6. just like what you have in your tawag nito, yung downloaded ECG tracing ninyo, no? So if you notice, you have to manually label leads 1, 2, and 3, AVR, AVL, AVF, B1, 2, B6. Excuse lang guys. Okay. So going back. So you need to label your tracing immediately, because when you become clerks, no, when you become interns, you will be getting the ECG of all the patients, let's say in the emergency room or an entire ward. So if you miss, labeling your tracing, ay good luck naman. No? Hindi mo na alam kung kanino 'yon, no? With all your tracings with you. So that's a potential malpractice suit. Okay. As for the patient, allow the patient to rest for a while. So before doing the tracing, have the patient rest for a while. Remove all metal objects from the body because this can cause interference. No? Belt buckles, earrings, necklace, whatever, anything metal, coins, pens, what have you. No? Yung mga piercings, no? Kung saan pa yan, no? Kung saan body part pa yan. So you need to remove all metal objects from the body. Now, if there are certain metal objects that you cannot possibly remove, like for example, implants, no? Or braces, then you might want to take note of that so that if there are any interference, you can alert the cardiologist na, Doc, the patient is wearing this, that. So, your cardiologist would know, no? So that if you have any interference, then the cardiologist will have to do his or her best in reading the tracing. Okay. Make sure the patient is not in contact with any metal object. So if you're using, let's say, a gurney, alam niyo ba yung gurney, yung stretcher, no? Sometimes it has metal railings, so make sure your patient is not touching those railings, no? Things like that. So the patient should not be in contact with any metal object because this will cause interference. So again, notify the technician if you have any electronic or metal implants in the body, no? Like mga metal implants, pacemakers, etc. Now, during the tracing, relax. No? Tell the patient to relax. You cannot get the ECG tracing if your patient is, agitated or anxious or what have you. Do not move. So sit still. Lie down still. No? So do not move and breathe normally. Sometimes patients, get to hyperventilate. If you hyperventilate, that actually alters your ECG tracing. No? You will learn later that when you hyperventilate or when you breathe deeply, when you inhale deeply, the RR interval widens, and when you exhale, the RR interval becomes narrower. No? So, pwedeng magkaroon ng, changes or discrepancies with your RR interval when you're determining the rhythm already. No? So, make sure the patient is breathing normally. No? So that more or less your RR intervals are constant, no? Or consistent. Okay, any questions so far?
None.
Doc.
Okay. Okay. So for today's exercise, we will do an experiment on electrocardiography. So we will teach you how to place the electrodes to the patient and how to get the different parameters that is indicated in your exercise manual. For this video, we will teach you how to interpret physiologic parameters with regards to electrocardiography. So first, we will need to place the electrodes on the limbs. Now take note that in performing your ECG, your patient must be lying down comfortably and make sure that there are no metal objects placed on the body. So make sure that coins, pens, watches, eyeglasses, belts, and anything that has metal on it must be removed from the body before performing the ECG. Have the patient remove the upper garment and lie or allow your patient to lie comfortably on the mat or on the bed. First, you need to know how to place the electrodes for the limbs. Now take note that the electrodes for the limbs are color-coded. So this is an international standard, and make sure that you know how to properly place your electrodes. Your red is placed on the right arm. The yellow is placed on the left arm. Green is placed on the left leg. And the black, which serves as your ground, is placed on the right leg. Make sure that in placing the clips or the electrodes, the metal plates of your clips must touch the skin of the patient. So now we will place the electrodes for the precordial leads. Now, just like the electrodes for the limb leads, the electrodes for the precordial leads are also color-coded. They are also international standard. So your code is ROY-GB. So V1 would be your red, 2 is yellow, 3 is green, 4 is brown, purple is 5, and for your V6 would be black. Now it is important that you properly place your electrodes on the chest. In order to do that, you should be able to palpate the different landmarks you need to locate in order to properly place your electrodes. Okay, so in attaching your electrodes, we will first attach your V1. Now V1 is attached on the fourth intercostal space, right parasternal margin. So in order to do that, you need to locate first your fourth intercostal space. Your landmark will be just underneath the clavicle. So this will be your second intercostal space. Now you need to palpate downward for your third and then your fourth intercostal space. So you will place V1 on the fourth intercostal space, right parasternal border. For your V2, the same procedure is done, but this time it's on the left parasternal border. So locate first your second intercostal space, palpate the third and your fourth. So here you will place your V2. Next, we need to place V3. But in order to do that, we need to locate first the proper placement for your V4. Now, V4 is typically placed on the fifth intercostal space, left mid-clavicular line. So if this is your fourth intercostal space, you need to locate your fifth intercostal space around here and make sure that you place your electrode, your V4, on the mid-clavicular line. For your V3, we just simply place it between your V2 and V4. Next, we will place V5. Now, V5 is placed on the fifth intercostal space, left anterior axillary line. So if this marks your fifth intercostal space, you need to palpate your space in the anterior axillary margin. Take note that since the rim is oriented posteriorly and superiorly, it is inaccurate for us to place the electrode perpendicular to your graph. So what you need to do is you need to palpate your intercostal space and place your electrode on the anterior axillary line. For V6, this is placed on the fifth intercostal space, left mid-axillary line. So similarly, you need to palpate and then place your electrode on the proper side. Okay, before we get the tracing, make sure that the patient is instructed properly not to move during the tracing of the ECG, as this will be reflected on the ECG tracing. So first, we need to get the standard. So this is 1 millivolt. Then you can subsequently trace the different leads. So this would be your lead 1, lead 2, lead 3, EVR, EVL, EVF, T1, T2, T3, T4, T5, and T6. Long T2. Okay, guys, any questions so far?
Doc, yung getting the
Doc.
standard po, yung sa getting the standards po, 3 seconds po ba yung intervals nila?
I mean, getting the standard.
Yung sana po, yung sa paglipat po nung V1 to V2, V3, etc.
When you switch the electrode or the lead you were tracing.
Yes po, Doc.
Okay, it depends on you. If you feel that 3 seconds is enough, then it's okay. If you want to get a longer tracing, that's also okay. So it depends on you. It depends on you and the resources available. So if your ECG strip is, a little bit limited, then a 3-second tracing for each lead should be enough. No, but if you want to get a longer tracing, it's okay. Any other questions?
Doc, medyo out of the topic question, but still regarding ECG. How accurate po yung mga ECG sa mga smartwatch po?
They're not accurate.
Okay po.
Outrightly, I will tell you, they're not accurate.
Sige po. Thank you.
Any other questions? Doc, we're going to use pen or pencil when labeling the graphing trace. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you're using a pen or a pencil, for as long as you label your tracing properly. Any other question? Wala na? Okay, sige. Okay. Now, at this point, you need to bring out your equilateral triangle. Guys, mag-on naman kayo ng video so that, I don't feel alone. Ayan, salamat. At this point, bring out your equilateral triangle, your ruler, protractor, pens, and have your downloaded ECG tracing ready. No, you don't have to print it out. And actually, I don't recommend you guys printing it out because the grid lines will be a little blurred. So download nyo lang. Okay, sige. So let me orient you first, and I'm sure this has already been discussed during your lecture with Dr. Barbon. So this is your typical ECG tracing, no? So you have your P, your Q, your R, your S, and your T waves, no? Okay. Now this ECG tracing is placed on the grid, no? So if you look at your grid, no? You have one big box, this one, and one big box is a 5x5 grid, no? So this is one big box, and one big box is actually a 5x5 grid. So if you count 5 big boxes horizontally, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this is actually 1 second. So 5 big boxes horizontally is 1 second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No? 2 big boxes vertically. 1, 2. This is 1 millivolt. No? This is 1 millivolt. So with that, you should be able to derive the value of the smallest box. No? So the smallest box will be 0.04 second and 0.1 millivolt. No? You take note of that. Now, quick recap lang. Of course, P is your atrial depolarization. No? QRS is your ventricular depolarization. And your T wave is the phase 3 of your repolarization. No? We'll discuss the other parts later on. No? But this is your typical ECG tracing. Now, if you look at the ECG tracing you have right now, there are variations actually. No? So some tracings will not look exactly like this. No? Some tracings will not have your Q wave. No? Some tracings will have taller R waves than others. No? Some will be deflecting upward, some will be deflecting downward, etc. So if you look at your tracing right now, you actually have variations, no, for your ECG tracing for this one. Now, at this point, it is important for you to recognize what is your P wave, your Q, your R, your S, and your T. No? Now, as first-year medical students, you should be able to recognize what a normal ECG tracing would look like. No? Now, when you become doctors, not all of you will be cardiologists. No? Some of you probably would go into OB or in pediatrics, or yung iba siguro magpopolitiko na lang, mag-aartista na lang, di ba? But whatever field you go into, it is important for you to recognize what a normal ECG tracing would look like. So if you have any deviations from the normal, then you might want to refer this to a specialist. No? I always tell students that as doctors, whatever field, you go into when you become doctors, you should be able to recognize what is the normal, and if you encounter any peculiarities within your ECG tracing, then this should already prompt you to refer your patient to a specialist. It is important for us to, or I think it's better to have these patients referred to a specialist, find out that it's normal, rather than not referring to a specialist only to find out later on that abnormal pala. No? So it is mas importante na nire-refer natin sila tapos normal pala kesa naman hindi natin sila na-refer na abnormal pala. No? So yun yung gusto kong sabihin sa inyo. So again, it is important for us to recognize what a normal ECG tracing would look like. Okay. So these are the parameters that you will be getting for your output this afternoon. Oh, by the way, may output pala kayo. No, surprise. This is in view of your flipped class output, and this is individual, by the way. So these are the components of your ECG tracing. No, you have your P wave, Q, R, S, and then your T wave, and then you have your intervals and your segments. I'll not go into the nitty-gritty details anymore because na-discuss na yan ni Dr. Valerio and na-discuss na rin yan ni Dr. Barbon kanina. No? Okay. Okay. Now, I'll teach you how to more or less determine a few parameters. No, determine a few parameters. Typically, the code I use is RAHIM. RRAHIM. RAHIM. So this is a code na I've learned when I was a clerk, during my internship years, because this gives you a guide on what to look for, no, when you have an ECG tracing. So all doctors more or less should have this in mind, Rahim, no? So the first R is rhythm, the second R is rate, the yung A is axis, no? So that's RRA. H is hypertrophy, I is ischemia or infarct, and M is tawag ito, myopathies, no? Myopathies. Now, the first three are more or less physiologic. The first three are more or less physiologic. The last three, H, I, M, are typically pathologic. Now, the first three will give you clues, no, to certain pathologic conditions, no? So yung first three, R, R, and A, can already give you clues if you have problems with hypertrophy, no, ischemia or infarct, or when you have myopathies. Okay, but for now, since you guys are first year, so we'll focus more on the first three. So this is typically normal or physiologic. The first thing that you will determine is your rhythm. No? The first thing that you will determine is your rhythm. So if you look at your tracing right now, no, typically we look at your RR intervals, no? So for you to determine that your rhythm is regular, no? So usually it's the lead 2 that we check, lead 2. So look at your lead 2, your lead 2 right now. So you should have your tracing, no? And then determine now if you have a constant RR interval. So how do you do that? How do you do that? Anyone? Hello, guys. So for you to say you have a regular rhythm, your RR intervals should be constant. So how do you do that? Guys, hello. Nandyan pa ba kayo?
Po.
Oh, paano? How do you determine a constant RR interval?
Yung distance po ng between R's.
Okay. And then
Same po ng number of squares. No?
ano yan?
Number of
Count
boxes.
po yung big boxes po.
Ano yung big, what about the big boxes?
The big boxes in between the RR interval po.
Sabi, bilangin daw po yung small squares between your RR interval. So if you count the small squares, and then what? So how do you know if it's regular?
Pag equal po.
Equal. So all RR intervals should be equal.
Or roughly equal.
Roughly equal. Okay, but that will take time. So imagine yourself, you're in the ER and you have, let's say, 12 patients, all of them, no? You will be getting their ECG and then you will be counting the small squares, all of them. Theoretically, that's correct, no? You count the small squares or you measure the length of your one RR interval, and all RR intervals should be the same, no? Or all RR intervals should be the same. But there's a shortcut technique for that. What do? You get your tracing, no? You get your tracing, and you get a small piece of paper and mark the peaks of 2 RR intervals. The peak of 2 R waves, no? So you get 1 RR interval. And what you can do is you just match, no? You just match. So if your peaks, if your R waves, no? if the peak of your R waves would fall in your markings, then you have a constant RR interval. No? So that's how you do it. Doc, you do just eyeball. Hirap naman, yeah. The shortcut technique is called eyeballing, but you can't just eyeball it, using just your eyeballs or your eyes. What you need to do is you need to get a piece of paper, no, and mark two consecutive R waves. No? Just mark. So you have two markings on your paper, and then you match, no, yung mga RR. Sana nakikita. So halimbawa, if you have two marks like that, no, let's say that, and then ganun nyo lang. No? So if your RR intervals would fall on your markings, then you have a constant rhythm. Now this is typically signed out as sinus rhythm. No? Sinus rhythm. So that means that your rhythm is regular, no, and your primary pacemaker is typically the SA node. No, so when you talk about sinus, no, the term sinus denotes that your SA node is your primary pacemaker. So for example, if you have an ECG result, it says there's sinus tachycardia or sinus bradycardia. What does that imply? No, so this means that, for example, sinus tachycardia, it means that the heart rate is elevated, no, more than 100 beats per minute. And your primary pacemaker is the SA node. The same is true for sinus bradycardia. No? Your heart rate is below 60 and your primary pacemaker is your SA node. So that's what sinus means. Any questions so far?
Doc, I have a question lang po for the technique, yung eyeballing po. So, is it possible na you just fold the paper and then compare it? Or is the paper not thin, is like thick enough for that? If you really nagmamadali na you can't get a piece of paper.
Oh, folding your ECG tracing might not be advisable. No? Kasi baka ma-erase yung tracing. And how can you possibly, I don't know, hindi ko ma-imagine. If you fold it like that, how do you know if your RR intervals are the same? No, so ganon. Get a piece of paper. If you're in the ER, siguro naman may maliit na papel doon na pwede mong magamit, di ba? So ganon, no? Oh, any other questions? Wala. Okay, so that's your rhythm, no? So if your rhythm is regular, so typically it's sinus rhythm, no? Sinus denotes your SA node is your primary pacemaker, no? Now, because of this, you should not be reading ECG results that would say sinus ventricular fibrillation, no? There's no such thing. Because when you have an arrhythmia, some other portion in the heart becomes a pacemaker. No? So there's no such thing as a sinus atrial flutter or sinus, ano pa ba? Sinus VTAC or sinus ventricular tachycardia. There's no such thing. No? Because these arrhythmias arise from some other portion in the heart acting as a pacemaker. No? Or in other words, your SA node now is not the primary pacemaker. Somebody else is, producing or generating a different action potential. Anyway, okay, so that's how you get your rhythm. Next is rate. So the formula for your rate is 60 over RR interval. No? 60 over RR interval. Okay, so this formula is universal. Some of you, may formula when you're doing the eyeballing, yung ano yun? 150 divided by big boxes, something like that, no? Do we have any nurses here? Sino gumagamit nun? Or tama ba? Oh yeah, 150 divided by your big box or 100 divided by your big box. Guys, nandiyan pa ba kayo?
Yes, Doc.
Oh,
Yes, Doc.
Are you familiar with that kind of technique?
Hindi po.
No, Doc.
Opo, within a 10-second strip po. Okay, so yon. Yan, 300 divided by how many big boxes within your RR interval, or 150 divided by your big boxes, etc. down the line. Now, if you ask me, I'd rather use this formula because this is one formula fits all. So that's 60 over your RR interval. No. Now take note that your RR interval should be constant for you to use this formula. No, for you to use this formula. Now, Doc, what if your RR interval is not constant, meaning you have, the rhythm is irregular? Then you could do a 3-second strip, no, and then times 20. So, or if you want it to be more accurate, you get a 30-second strip and then times 2. Or if you want it more accurate, 1 minute strip, and then you physically count, no, your heartbeats. No? So that's how you get your rate. Any questions so far?
None, Doc.
None, Doc.
Wala. Okay. Now let's go to axis. Okay. So before we talk about the axis, one thing that you should take note is the concept of your vector. Vector is the average direction and magnitude of the electric activity of the heart. Again, vector is the average direction and magnitude of the electric activity of the heart. So we all know that the electric activity of the heart flows from the base, going to the apex. From the base going to the apex, and then as it goes to the apex, the direction of the electric current goes to your ventricular walls upward already. Now, if you get the average magnitude and direction, it will look like this black arrow here. So the black arrow here will represent the direction of your electric activity. So typically that's from the base going to the apex. Now, if you measure the length of this arrow, that will give you your magnitude. That will give you your magnitude. What is axis? Axis is the orientation of our heart in space or in the mediastinum. Now, normally our heart is tilted a little bit to the left. So the apex is tilted a little bit to the left, such that normally the vector is incongruent with the axis. So these are two different concepts. Vector is the average direction and magnitude of the electric activity of the heart, whereas axis is the orientation of our heart in space, in the mediastinum. Now, normally, both of them should be congruent with one another. Now, sometimes when you have certain pathologic changes in the heart, then the vector and the axis becomes incongruent. So this is when you have, let's say, your axis deviations. But we'll talk about that a little later on. So let me orient you first. So this is your Einthoven's triangle. This is your Einthoven's triangle. So again, this is lead 1, this is lead 2, and this is lead 3. Now, your triangle should be equilateral. Equilateral, meaning same lengths on all sides and all angles should be the same for all your corners. Okay. So you more or less the heart is placed in the middle. So this is the orientation of our heart. And in getting the vector, we typically use leads 1, 2, and 3. So if you look at the diagram here, so this is lead 1, this is lead 2, and this is lead 3. So getting the magnitude of the electric activity of each lead will help you determine the vector. And once you determine the vector, more or less you have an idea of the axis of the heart. So for Like, for example, if this is the magnitude for lead 1, no? This is the magnitude for lead 2, and this is the magnitude for lead 3. You will be plotting that, and then from there, you'll be getting your vector, and from there, you'll be getting your axis. Any questions so far? Wala? I know it's at this point, it's a little bit abstract, no? Pero as we go through the activity, I hope everything becomes a little bit clearer. Okay, sige. So, ayan, si Harry Roque, nasa Boracay siya. Anyway, so this is the placement of your Einthoven's triangle now. Okay. The first thing that you should take note is, at this point, label the triangles that you have. So pull out your triangles, no? So it should be oriented this way. Label your right arm, and left leg. Place all your poles. So negative, negative on the right arm, positive, positive on the left leg, and positive, negative on the left arm. Take note the placing of your poles, no? So dapat tama. So do it right now. Label lead 1, lead 2, and lead 3, and place your positive and your negative poles properly. Okay. Next, using your ruler, get the midpoint of each side. Get the midpoint of each side, and using a protractor, draw a line perpendicular to the side. So that means 90 degrees. No? So once you draw this line, all of your 3 lines should intersect at the middle. No? And it should end on each corner, like here. So using your ruler, get the midpoint of each side. And using your protractor, draw a line perpendicular to the side. Again, it should be 90 degrees. No? You know that your triangle is equilateral if all 3 lines intersect at the middle. Do it now. Kapag medyo mabilis, no? Sabihin nyo lang ako so that, hihintayin ko kayo. Okay, yung sa protractor, una, you get the midpoint of each side, yung gitna. And then using your protractor, draw a perpendicular line. So in the diagram here, it's the blue line here. So this blue line should form a 90-degree angle with your side. So the only way you can do that is using your protractor. No? So do that on all 3 sides. Okay na, Paulo?
Yes, Doc. Thank you.
Okay, sige. O, lahat ba na natapos na? So, yung blue lines should intersect at the middle. If they don't intersect in the middle, there's something wrong with your triangle, or there's something wrong with your procedure, no? So all 3 lines should intersect at the middle. Okay, next. Draw a horizontal line that will pass through where the three lines intersect. So in the diagram here, this will represent, this is represented by the red line here. So draw a horizontal line. So this horizontal line should be parallel to lead 1. No? So ulitin ko, draw a horizontal line that will pass through the midpoint. So dapat dadaan siya sa midpoint kung saan nag-intersect yung tatlong blue lines. It should pass through the midpoint and it should be parallel with lead 1. Sige, do it right now. Okay na guys? Okay, sige. So that's your Einthoven's triangle, no? So dapat tama yung inyong drawing. Otherwise, when you plot your vector or when you determine the axis, if your triangle is, you know, inaccurate, then your axis and your vector will also be inaccurate. Okay, next. So the midpoint of each side will be marked 0. So this is your 0 mark, yung gitna, no? Okay. Now, pull out your ECG tracing. So we will look at leads 1, 2, and 3, and we will get the QRS complexes, no? Our 0 mark is the isoelectric point, yung horizontal line. No? So that would be our 0 mark. All deflections that goes upward, no, is positive. All deflections that would go downward is negative. So typically, yung Q at saka yung S waves, no, since they are normally deflected downward, then they are negative, no? So negative yung sign nila. And from your isoelectric point with your R wave, no, going up, so that should be positive. And we will plot this on the Einthoven's triangle. Example. Okay, manood muna. No? So this is typical tracing. The blue line here, which is the horizontal, is said to be the isoelectric point. So this is the Q wave. This is the S wave. This is the R wave. Again, anything below your isoelectric point will be negative. Anything above your isoelectric point will be positive. All you need to do is count the boxes, the small boxes. No? Example, if you look at this tracing, so your Q wave, roughly this is 1 box. No? So 1 box going downward, it's -1. Your R wave, this is 5, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So that's 14 small boxes. So that's plus 14. And your S wave is -5. No? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 5 boxes going down. So that's -5. What you need to do is you need to get the sum. So -1 plus 14 minus 5, you get +8. Any questions so far on how to get that? So look at your lead 1, no? Diyan sa tracing ninyo, yung downloaded tracing, pick tracing na that you can easily count the small boxes. Now sometimes your waves will not, you know, exactly touch yung grid lines, but i-adjust nyo na lang siya visually, no? You adjust the tracing visually, no? So ganon. So you do that for lead 1, no? Tapos gagawin nyo rin siya for lead 3. Actually, gawin nyo na rin for lead 2. So lead 1, 2, 3. Nakakasunod ba guys lahat? So on lead 1, pick a QRS complex that you can easily count, no? Yung madaling bilangin. You do that for lead 2 and lead 3 as well. So you should have 3 values.
Doc, question lang po. Paano pag walang Q? 0 na lang pilalagay?
Pag wala siya, it's 0.
Thank you po.
Make sure you're reading lead 1, lead 2, and lead 3. Okay na guys? Are you guys done?
Wait po, Doc.
May nagbibilang? Meron pa bang nagbibilang? Wait lang. Okay, sige. Okay na? Can we proceed? Okay, sige. Okay, so by now you should have 3 values. no, for leads 1, 2, and 3. Now, if you want to follow your Einthoven's law, no, then lead 1 plus lead 3 should equal to lead 2. Now, if you have a gross discrepancy, then there's something wrong. No? So you might want to redo it. Okay. Ayan. So for example lang guys ha. Let's say lead 1 you get positive 8, lead 3 you get negative 2, no? So let's say these are the values that you got. So plus 8 minus 2, lead 2 should be positive 6. So with this follows your Einthoven's law, di ba? Leads 1 plus lead 3 is equal to lead 2. Now, using the values that you were able to get from your ECG tracing, you will be plotting it on your Einthoven's triangle. Okay, o manood muna. How do you do that? First, you need to plot lead 1. Okay. So for example, if let's say you get positive 8, using your ruler, you count 8 units to the positive pole, no? You count 8 units to the positive pole. So you could use millimeters, you could use centimeters, you could use inches, but make sure whatever unit you're using, you should be consistent, no? So for example, if you decide to use centimeters, then use centimeters all throughout. Okay. So count 8 units going to the positive pole. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then using your protractor, draw a perpendicular line. This one. No? Draw a perpendicular line. You will do that for lead 3. So in this case, it's negative 2. So from the midpoint, no? From the midpoint, this one, you count 2 units going to the negative pole. Count 2 units going to the negative pole. So 1, 2. And again, using your protractor, draw a perpendicular line. So that is represented by the yellow line here. Sige, do it right now. Plot first lead 1 and lead 3. So using the values that you got from your ECG tracing, no, plot lead 1 and lead 3 on your Einthoven's triangle. Okay, choppy daw. O sige. So first, you need to plot lead 1. So whatever value you got, no, you plot it. So from the 0 mark, for example, from your 0 mark, let's say you got positive 8. So you count 8 units going to the positive pole. No? So you could use inches, you could use centimeters, you could use millimeters, whatever unit you want to use. But make sure that you use this unit all throughout. So if you're using centimeters, use centimeters all throughout. So for example, positive 8, you count 8 units to the positive pole. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then using your protractor, draw a perpendicular line. You do that again for lead 3. So for example, if lead 3 you got negative 2, then from the midpoint, which is your 0 mark, count 2 units to the negative pole. So negative 1, negative 2. So again, draw a perpendicular line. No? So do it right now.
And Doc, kapag po positive yung value sa lead 3,
Lead to the positive pole,
okay,
go
pa.
to the positive pole. Okay na guys? Can we proceed? Or meron pa bang nagpa-plot? Can we proceed? Magparamdam lang kayo sa chat box. Kung may nagtatrabaho pa. Okay, sige. Sige lang. Okay. Bilisan lang natin because hanggang 5 o'clock lang tayo. Sana. Okay na guys? Meron pa bang nagpa-plot? Okay, so while you're plotting leads 1 and 3, the others can plot lead 2 as well. No? Now lead 2 is used to check if everything is in order. So if you plot, let's say lead 2, let's say that's positive 6. So using your lead 2 here, you count 6 units going to the positive pole. So halimbawa, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No? Let's say it's this one. And then again, you draw a perpendicular line. So you know your triangle, no, is correct if lead 2 will meet leads 1 and 3. So that means tama yung drawing ninyo. So your tracing, no, or your diagram follows your Einthoven's law. So lead 2 should meet leads 1 and 3. If it deviates, no, it's probably 1 or 2 degrees deviation is okay. But if it is grossly deviated, then there's something wrong with your diagram. So you might want to redo it again. Sige, do it now. If you're having any problems, magparamdam lang kayo so that I can assist you. Most especially if your lead 2 is going to Cubao.
The question lang po. Hindi okay lang po ba na hindi nag-overlap yung 1 and 3 pero natamaan naman po siya parehas ng 2.
Imposible 'yon. Imposible 'yon. Because if you plot your leads 1 and lead 3 and you extend the lines, at some point they should meet. Magkikita dapat sila. Leads 1 and 3 will meet. Doc, paano na kasi i-plot? Bakit di po sakto sa akin? Ano ibig sabihin nun? Draw a line even outside the triangle. Yes, correct. So tama si Doc Villa, no? Even if your lines will intersect outside the triangle, it's okay. Basta you just extend the lines, no? So leads 1 and 3 should meet. They will meet at some point. Hindi pwedeng hindi. Kasi hindi naman sila parallel lines. Okay na? Can we proceed? Wait po. Okay, sige. Guys, bilisan nyo lang kasi magpa 5 o'clock na. May exam ba kayo ngayon? Do you have class after this one?
We don't have an exam po, Doc, but we have a class po.
Ano?
We have a class po after.
Anong 5 o'clock?
Yes po, Doc.
Ay, bilisan ninyo. Okay. So I hope na-plot na yung leads 1, 2, and 3. Again, if lead 2 will not fall where leads 1 and 3 intersect, then there's something wrong. You might want to redo it. Okay, so if your lead 2 intersects leads 1 and 3, then your diagram follows Einthoven's law. Okay, next. From the center, oh yes, may question?
May question po. Doc, yung sa leads 1, 2, and 3, kailangan mag-intersect po sila at 1 point lang po?
Ideally, yes.
What if po nag-intersect po sila per like 2 points po?
Sobrang layo ba ni lead 2?
Malapit lang po sila actually.
Malapit lang sila.
Para mga around 2 to 3 units po, ganun.
Ano yung unit mo? Feet?
Hindi, parang cm po.
2 cms. Oh, we allow plus minus 3 daw.
Okay
So,
po.
wag naman sobrang grossly deviated, no?
Okay po, Doc. Thank you po.
Oo. Anyway, sige, going back. Okay lang kung hindi siya perfect na nag-intersect, no? Kung malapit lang naman, no, if lead 2 is very close to where leads 1 and 3 intersect, then it's okay, no? Hindi naman siya clinically significant. No, hindi naman siya clinically significant. Pero if it's grossly away, then you might want to redo your check for your calibrations. You might want to redo your diagram. Okay, so going back. So once you have plotted all 3 leads, ideally all of them should intersect at 1 point. No? From the center, using your ruler and your pen, no, from the center, draw a line from the center going to where all 3 lines intersect. No? So from the center, draw a line to where all 3 lines intersect. Now, if lead 2 deviated a little bit, no? You need to connect the center to where leads 1 and 3 intersect. No? So from the center, you connect that point to where leads 1 and 3 intersect. Okay na? Okay na, guys? Doc, again po. Okay. So once you've plotted leads 1, 2, and 3, no, all of them ideally should be intersecting at a single point. From the center of your triangle, draw a line, no, going to where leads 1 and 3 intersect. Draw a line to where leads 1 and 3 will intersect. Ideally, dapat kasama dyan si lead 2. Pero kung naligaw si lead 2, ng konti lang, okay lang yon. No? So again, draw a line from the center going to where leads 1 and 3 intersect. Okay na? Bilisan natin at magkaklase na kayo. Okay. Using your protractor, this is the angle that you will measure. So that's your axis. That's your axis. No? So siguro ito probably 20 degrees, no, for the diagram here. Now, this arrow here will be your vector. So if you get your ruler and you measure your arrow here or yung line here, whatever unit you're using, so if you're using centimeter, you multiply that with 0.1 millivolt. No? Kasi yung calibration nyo, for example, if you're using centimeter, dun sa pag-count, no? So that's 0.1 millivolt. So if you measure the length of this red line here, no, whatever unit you're using, you multiply that with 0.1 millivolt. So that will give you the magnitude of your vector. So this is your vector. This is your axis. Any questions so far? Malinaw? Malinaw. Ay nila magsalita.
Kind of confusing po, Doc, pero trying to understand naman po.
Trying to understand naman. Sige. Okay, so katulad ng nabanggit ni Dr. Barbon, no, if you read your books, the normal axis is 0 to 90 degrees. No, it's 0 to 90 degrees. Above, greater than 90 up to 120, so that's your right axis deviation. No, 180 to negative 90, so that will be negative 90 to negative 180. So that's your no man's land or your extreme axis deviation. And 0 to negative 90 is your right axis deviation. No? So there. Okay. Oh, before I leave you guys, this will be your output that you will be submitting, no, in view of your flip class. Doc, paano po ulit dun sa computation, dun sa may arrow? Okay, sige. Balik tayo. So, to get the vector, you simply measure the length of this line. So, whatever unit you use, no, that's the unit that you're using. So, kung ang ginamit mo dito ay centimeters, no, you use centimeters when measuring your vector. If you use inches, you use inches, no? And then you multiply that with 0.1. So for example, if you got, let's say 10 centimeters, let's say you're using centimeters. If you get 10 centimeters, then you multiply 10 by 0.1, no? So that's one millivolt already. So that's how you get your vector or your magnitude, no? And using your protractor, this is now your axis. Okay, so again, this will be your output. I think this ECG orientation slide is posted in Moodle. So ito na lang yung guide ninyo, no? So when you submit your output, make sure you take note of your formula, no? So how did you able to get your pulse pressure? How did you able to get your mean arterial pressure and the duration of these parameters, no? So as a guide, you can also find this in your in your Moodle. So it's also posted there. So that's how you measure the different parameters, no? And of course, you will be determining the heart rate of the ECG tracing that you have. Calculate your mean electrical axis, no? So that's the vector and your axis in degrees, and give the significance of your axis computation. So is it normal? Ano ba siya? May left axis deviation, right axis deviation. You will also be submitting your Einthoven's triangle. Now, guys, any questions so far?
Doc, I have a question for you. Is it during po today?
Sige, pasa nyo na lang tomorrow.
Thank you, Doc.
You have 24
Okay,
hours.
Doc.
Tomorrow afternoon. Any more questions?
Hey, Doc, sorry. One last po. What time po tomorrow?
5.
Okay po, Doc.
5 in the afternoon. So that's more than enough, no?